As the year 1862 drew to a close, the Civil War's Eastern Theater became the stage for one of the most lopsided and tragic battles of the conflict, the Battle of Fredericksburg. Fought from December 11th to 15th, 1862. This clash between the Union Army of the Potomac and the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia was a devastating failure for Union forces and a stark reminder of the challenges facing the Northern war effort. The battle epitomized the grim realities of war, where poor planning, logistical failures, and resolute defenses collided to create scenes of unspeakable carnage and despair. By late 1862, President Abraham Lincoln and Union leadership were desperate for a decisive victory in the Eastern Theater. General George B. McClellan had been relieved of command after his persistent indecisiveness during the Maryland Campaign and the Battle of Antietam. In his place, Major General Ambrose E. Burnside was appointed to lead the Army of the Potomac. Burnside, reluctant to take the position, devised a bold plan to seize the Confederate capital of Richmond by crossing the Rappahannock River at Fredericksburg, Virginia, and driving south. Fredericksburg, strategically located midway between Washington, D.C. and Richmond, was a critical point of access to the Confederate heartland. Burnside's plan relied on speed and the element of surprise, but logistical delays quickly disrupted his operation. The pontoon bridges needed to cross the Rappahannock arrived weeks late, giving Confederate General Robert E. Lee ample time to fortify his position on the high ground west of the town. By the time the Union Army was ready to move, the Confederates were well entrenched and prepared for an assault. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, numbering about 78,000 troops, occupied a nearly impregnable defensive position. The Confederate forces entrenched themselves along a ridge known as Marye's Heights, which provided a commanding view of the surrounding terrain. Artillery batteries were strategically placed to cover the open fields below, creating overlapping fields of fire that would prove devastating to any advancing enemy. The natural features of the battlefield, combined with Lee's strategic placement of troops, created a formidable barrier. Confederate infantry manned a stone wall at the base of the ridge, providing additional cover and reinforcing their defensive advantage. For the Union Army, which outnumbered the Confederates with approximately 120,000 men, the challenge was daunting. The Union forces faced the grim prospect of advancing across open ground, fully exposed to enemy fire. On December 11th, Union engineers began constructing pontoon bridges across the Rappahannock River under heavy Confederate fire. The effort was slow and costly, as Confederate sharpshooters targeted the engineers and disrupted their work. To silence the sharpshooters, Union artillery bombarded Fredericksburg, setting parts of the town ablaze. After 2 days of effort and significant casualties, Burnside's forces finally crossed the river and occupied Fredericksburg. However, the delay had given Lee ample time to reinforce his defenses, and the element of surprise was entirely lost. On December 13th, Burnside ordered a series of frontal assaults against the Confederate positions. The Union attacks began on the Confederate right flank, where General William B. Franklin's corps attempted to break through. Despite initial success in penetrating the Confederate line, Franklin failed to exploit the opening, and Confederate reinforcements quickly restored the position. This missed opportunity further compounded the Union's troubles. The most infamous phase of the battle unfolded at Marye's Heights. Union soldiers, advancing in tightly packed formations, marched across an open plain under relentless artillery and rifle fire. The Confederate defenders, sheltered behind the stone wall and ridge, inflicted devastating casualties on the advancing troops. Wave after wave of Union soldiers were repelled, their bodies piling up on the battlefield. The repeated assaults, though courageous, were futile, as Burnside's rigid adherence to his plan ignored the mounting evidence of failure. By the evening of December 13th, it was clear that the Union assaults had failed. Burnside, deeply frustrated, considered renewing the attack, but was persuaded by his subordinates to abandon the effort. Over the next 2 days, Union forces held their positions, but made no further advances. On December 15th, Burnside ordered a withdrawal back across the Rappahannock, ending the battle. The Union Army suffered approximately 12,600 casualties, including over 1,200 killed, 9,000 wounded, and 2,400 missing or captured. In stark contrast, Confederate losses totaled around 5,300. The disparity in casualties underscored the futility of the Union's frontal assaults and highlighted the effectiveness of Lee's defensive strategy. For the Union, Fredericksburg was a humiliating defeat that dealt a severe blow to morale. Soldiers and civilians alike questioned the competence of their leadership, and Burnside's reputation was irreparably damaged. Within weeks, calls for his removal grew louder, culminating in his resignation from command early in 1863. The Battle of Fredericksburg revealed the perils of poor planning and the dangers of underestimating an entrenched enemy. Burnside's rigid adherence to his plan, despite the mounting evidence of its flaws, led to unnecessary loss of life and a humiliating defeat. The battle also underscored the importance of leadership and adaptability, qualities that Burnside's successors would need to embody to achieve victory in the Eastern Theater. For the Confederacy, Fredericksburg was a resounding tactical triumph. It reinforced the belief that superior defensive positions could offset the Union's numerical and material advantages. The victory bolstered Southern morale and solidified Robert E. Lee's reputation as a masterful commander. However, the battle did little to alter the broader strategic picture of the war. The Confederacy's inability to follow up on the victory meant that the strategic stalemate in the Eastern Theater persisted. The legacy of Fredericksburg is one of tragedy and resilience. For the Union, it was a painful lesson in the cost of overconfidence and poor execution. For the Confederacy, it was a testament to the power of defensive warfare, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The battle remains a stark reminder of the human cost of war, where thousands of lives can be lost in a single, futile effort. As the year ended, both sides prepared for the campaigns of 1863, knowing that the war was far from over. In the next episode, we will explore the Battle of Stones River, a critical engagement in the West.